My name is James. You don't know me. You can never know me. No one can. What I am, what I became, it's not something that can be explained by words. But I'll tell you my story, maybe because it haunts me, and maybe because I want you to feel it too. The darkness that's been with me since the very beginning. My father, he was a shadow, a monster that lived in the house. I was just a child, but I felt the weight of his hatred in the air. His silence was more suffocating than any scream. I would lie in bed at night, hearing the sound of his fist pounding against the walls, against anything that dared challenge his rage. His anger was a force of nature, and I was caught in its storm. I wasn't his son. I was just a target for his pain, his failures. Every time I looked into his eyes, I saw the hatred he had for the world. And I knew he was trying to make me like him. He succeeded. When I was young, I thought it would get better. I thought the silence would stop, but it only grew louder. His words still echo in my mind today. The way he looked at me, it was like he saw me as a reflection of his misery, and I hated him for it. But then I realized, no matter how much I hated him, he was still in me. His rage, his darkness, it was inside me, in my veins, in my bones. There was no escape. I kept running from the world, from the anger, from myself. I got caught, over and over again. The first time I went to prison, I thought, this is where I belong. I wasn't afraid of the cold steel doors. What terrified me was the silence inside, the way the walls closed in, the way the air thickened. But there was something else, something more sinister. I heard things, whispers. No one else heard them, but I did. Voices in the dark. They said, you are nothing, you will never escape. And then I heard about Martin Luther King, and something clicked inside me. He was out there talking about freedom, about change, about hope. And I knew that his voice, his presence, would drown out the darkness I carried inside me. He was a threat to everything I was, everything I felt. And I realized that the only way to silence the world, to silence that voice inside my head, was to take him down. Because if he kept talking, if people listened to him, then I was nothing, and I would never be nothing again. The night I pulled the trigger, it wasn't just a shot, it was the sound of everything breaking. Everything I had been running from, everything I had tried to escape, it all came crashing down on me. The world froze for a second, the moment when I pressed that trigger, and then it shattered. I wasn't just killing a man, I was killing every piece of myself that I had left. And the darkness inside me, it grew, stronger, hungrier. I didn't even run from the law at first. I ran from the thing inside me that was now unleashed. The whispers didn't stop. They got louder. They told me I was no longer human, that I was something else. And I believed them, because when you've gone this far into darkness, there's no going back. I was being chased, yes, but not by the police. They were chasing something that had already overtaken me. They were chasing the monster I had become. I couldn't escape. Every corner I turned, every street I ran down, the shadows were there, watching, waiting. They were behind me, beside me, all around me. You think it's just the police you're running from when you're on the run? It's not. It's the things inside you that you can never outrun. The guilt, the rage, the voices. The longer I ran, the more real they became. They weren't whispers anymore. They were screams, screams that grew louder every day. The trial wasn't a fight for my freedom. It was a battle for my soul. I knew the moment I walked into that courtroom, there was no way out. The faces around me were cold, indifferent. They didn't care about who I was. They only cared about what I did. They wanted justice. But what they didn't know was that the real trial wasn't in that room. It was in my mind. It was the voices that told me I was guilty before I ever pulled that trigger. The walls of the courtroom felt like they were closing in on me. I couldn't breathe. The questions they asked, the accusations they made, they were nothing compared to the hell I was living inside. And all I could think was, I didn't do this alone. There was something else. something dark that had been guiding me all along. The voices, the shadows. In that room, I wasn't just a man on trial. I was the vessel for something greater, something darker. And they didn't understand. They wanted answers, but I didn't have any. I could only feel the weight of what I had become. When they sentenced me, it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far worse. The prison walls didn't trap me. They couldn't. The real prison was inside me. It was the darkness, the rage, the voices that never stopped. It was like the walls of my cell were breathing, watching, listening. I could hear the whispers in the darkness. You'll never escape. You'll never be free. Even now, after everything, I still hear them. The shadows, the voices. They're with me. They never leave. And I know they will never stop, because they are me, and I am them. You may think you can escape your past, but let me tell you something. You can't. The darkness follows you. It never lets you go. You think you're free, but you're wrong. Once you've crossed the line, once you've done what I did, it's over. There's no going back. So thank you for listening. But if you're brave enough, if you really want to know what it's like to live in the shadows, subscribe. But remember this, once you step into the darkness, it doesn't let you out, ever.